Today on Supernormalized, I welcome to the show Jennifer Poland and Darryl Gurney, a couple bound by love and a shared calling to heal others through their unique spiritual gifts. We'll explore their incredible journey as together as soulmates and therapists, learning how they channel divine messages and tackle subconscious challenges in ways that may just transform lives. They both have remarkable stories separately, but when they brought that together, they discovered the power of the unity of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So enjoy this remarkable story. It's a great conversation, and it's amazing what they come up with and how they expressed it. So on with the show.
I know from the statistics that I have through YouTube and through other podcast apps that a lot of the listeners that I have aren't actually liking or subscribing. So if you could do me a really good favor, like and subscribe because you're on YouTube. And if you're on a podcast app, go and give me 5 stars. That way other people get to hear these great conversations too.
Welcome to Supernormalized, Jennifer Poland and Darryl Gurney. You two are basically angels in human bodies. From what I've read, it's like, what? These guys are really tuned in.
Wow. Thank you.
How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, we have individual stories, and then we've been together. So I'll let Darryl take this away.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. I mean, I started out years and years ago as a massage therapist, and then realized that I was never getting kind of permanent resolution with people. Their muscles would be tight a week later, and so I realized there's a reason why people are so tight, and that we'd have to deal, if we wanted resolution, we'd have to deal at the level of cause. So it really sent me on a journey of mind-body therapy and recognizing that they're just really essentially different expressions of the same thing in the mind and the body. The mind, if we think of it as a metaphor, as steam, and the body is like the ice cube the steam eventually manifests into. And so it was a long journey of studying, but then I started to use this with my clients and started to get much better results working with people. And deal a lot with the subconscious mind. The conscious mind, we're having this lovely conversation on a conscious level and so on. And we kind of forget about our subconscious, but it makes us breathe and our heartbeat and all these things we don't have to think about. But it's a storehouse. It's like a computer. It remembers everything that ever happened to us. And its basic job is to keep us safe, keep us alive. And so in doing so, it limits us. So if it sees the world and makes an interpretation that the world is a scary place, then I have to go into protection and I have to save myself. And if I got into trouble for speaking up as a child, then it's like, it's not, you better not speak up. And then it gets, the words get caught in your throat. And these people might end up with throat infections or thyroid issues or things of that nature that are throat related. And so you start to see that the subconscious programming just needs to be redone and so on, reprogrammed, if you will. And then once you do it, it's like the whole world's not dangerous. It's just my interpretation. And so once you change the programming, then the physical problems start to change. So that's like a very brief example of mind-body medicine, which basically I've been involved in for 30 years. Jen had, in the capacity of healer and teacher and so on. So Jen had her own journey. Mm-hmm. Why don't you share a little bit about your journey?
Sure. So I was a very sensitive child, very awake and aware, but that was my normal. So I had no understanding that maybe others didn't feel the same way. And I was very emotional, and so that could seem challenging at the time. But what I understood later and later is it became my gift. But as every teenager does, you kind of start to move away from who you truly are, and you're trying on different things. And so at the age of 28, I had a difficult time in my life, and it was the catalyst for that reawakening and that reemerging to connect to the divine. And it came through as a voice. And so the divine, when I say the divine, I might oscillate between a couple different words, but the great spirit, the divine, but essentially the creator as it kind of comes through, almost like an internal voice and knowing, sometimes visions. And so around age 28, I began my journey of channeling. And so I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I was trying to bring through the messages and the understanding of what they were trying to tell me, and they were my guide. And I took various modalities along the way to help me bring structure to, say Reiki or whatever. Essentially, started developing my own way as they would, when I say they, the collective consciousness of that energy, they would tell me what to do. But my greatest teachers were my children. As a mother, I learned so much through the mirror of self to other through my children. So as a teacher of the divine feminine, as we stand in as the feminine and masculine, I really want to normalize our spiritual path as mothers and people. And we're on this journey. It is a sacred path. So it is our day-to-day that really informs us of who we really are in a greater way.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. And so you both are having your own sort of paths, and then you met.
Yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, we came together about 4.5 years ago, and we both had our own individual practice, and so we, it was COVID and stuff. Like we were both had Zoom practices. Essentially, we would work with clients non-locally, which of course is the same thing when you're into the metaphysical quantum world. It makes no difference. And so we both had that, and then Spirit said, no, you guys need to work together. And so, and we just learned somewhere along the line is like, what happens if you just like totally trusted the divine impress that comes through? What would just happen if you just surrendered over to that? And a lot of times it's, you in your mind, you say, well, that makes no sense at all. Why would we combine our practices? Because you can't charge suddenly twice as much. People wouldn't come. So it's like, well, okay, so let's do it anyway. But it was really like you can learn so much from other teachers. You can learn so much from, the higher selves of the people you're working with. You can learn so much from what exists presently in the world in some sort of information form. But when we combined our skills, because Jennifer's clairvoyant skills are off the chart, and, my muscle testing and inquiry of just asking the right questions, we were able to access information that you couldn't read in books, that you couldn't find out there. And then we learned a tremendous amount. So it was really an exploration into untapped realms and deepening our knowledge and understanding of the metaphysical world as it relates to, everything essentially, the journey we are in on a collective level, our individual personal levels, our karmic reasons, our purpose for being here on the planet, and really our connection with everyone and everything. And then because essentially, probably don't have to tell you our journey is unsustainable that we're on now, humanity, and we've gone through a few mass extinctions before, and maybe we don't have to do that again. And then, but we can't solve our problems at the level of thinking that created them. That's not my quote, that's Einstein, but we have to change our thinking essentially. And so that starts with consciousness. But people have been trying to change out there all through history. It doesn't work very well. But what is completely in your power is changing in here. And because out there is reflection of in here, when we change in here, it starts to change out there. And that's something that we all can do, is we take back our power and shift. But the world is a mirror. It's a reflection. So when you look out there and you say, well, I don't like that out there, say, what's your relation to that in your own psyche? And then that is a wise question, because that's going to take you somewhere.
And what I would add is, I think the power of two is something that we're all attracted to that in life. Like we see, the duet. When two people are seen in a duet, and it's like, and so as Spirit asked us to come together, we stood in the pillar of the feminine and the masculine, and each of us had work to do. Like when we talk about, how we came together, we dedicate not only our practice and working with clients, and we, learning that as Spirit guided us. But we also, separate to that, would do 4 to 6 hours of deep personal work together. So we would take what we would do in practice and we would do it in mirror. And we would work on collective patterns. We would work on, the collective consciousness on the planet. We'd work on friends that they didn't even know, but because they were influencing the collective so much, Spirit would say, okay, change this, with approval, like we're asking you to do this because this affects so many other people. So as we individually looked at our own shadow and how we affected the field, our influence in the field grew and grew and grew until recently, and then we kept, I guess it sounds a little bit fluffy, but we kept getting upgraded. So the impact and the impress that we would have on others just expanded. And so with that permission from Spirit, our effect on our clients shifted dramatically, so much so that I actually had cancer myself. And so Spirit led us through that journey. And I can tell the story if you want, CJ. It's quite an interesting story. But yeah.
Yeah. Very interested to know that, because a lot of people go through a cancer process, but they don't understand it. But if you have that depth of understanding of how that is a part of your growth.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's really, so is that, would you like me to share it? Okay.
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
okay. So in about 2020, just as Darryl and I were coming together as a couple, so, we're new as a couple, and Spirit shares with me that he was going to be nursing me back to health with cancer. And it was a prophecy that came through, and I was like, okay. And I just kind of set it aside, and we went on our journey of coming together. And anyway, in December of 2023, I was having symptoms that I had, gone through some gynecological symptoms, and issues, and I thought I had dealt with what could have, evolved into cancer, but it escalated. And right before we were getting married, I went to the doctors, and right after the wedding, it was confirmed that I had uterine cancer. And so within about 6 weeks, I had my operation. I had a full hysterectomy. So I did go the medical path, and that was what Spirit guided us to do. Along that path, and in that time, we did so much inner work as to what would have led to those circumstances, what cancer was here to teach me, the denial of my own feminine. So when, as a child, I was born the first girl, I think my family really wanted the boy. They really wanted, I grew up on a farm, and it was all about the boy, being born a boy. And so the denial of my own feminine was really resulted in that. And I pushed away those, what would have made me a stronger feminine or a woman. And so I went into the achieving side of myself. I was really good at sports. I was, pursued all kinds of things that were very action oriented, really denying some of my creativity and some of my other qualities. And so this really affected my hormones, and I think resulted in the rejection of my own female parts. So anyway, we did all kinds of inner work, and 2 months into my recovery, Spirit comes to me again, and they said, it will come back in 4 months if you do not understand and resolve and really go through all of the healing lessons that cancer has brought you. And I diligently faced each and every thing that would come up, but there were parts of me that didn't want to understand certain things. And so that's that denial part of ourselves. Like, it lies in the subconscious until we're willing to see it. And that's a big part of, I think, our practice and what we try and convey to people. You have to want to know the truth. So our minds protect us. They say, oh, no, that's too much. I can't handle that. That's overwhelming. And so there were parts of me that were actively still trying to push away things that I wasn't, in my mind, I'll say, wasn't ready to hear. And so, but how do you know what you don't know? And so the feelings in the body really are the carriers of that message, and we have to pay attention. And so each time I would have a feeling and a sensation or a knowing come up, I'd say, okay, I'm ready. And then it would appear in our work. So I really want to tell your listeners, really say to Spirit, what is it that I have to see? What is it that I don't want to see? Show me. I'm willing, And so anyway, 4 months later, the day before my 6-month checkup, I had a message from Spirit that it was back. The cancer was back. And I was like, I'm trying. Anyway, so we went to the appointment, and my gynecologist palpitated a lump right beside where it was removed. And he said, I have to send you for a CAT scan stat. And here's the requisition, and they'll be in touch with you within a few days. Anyway, so we go home, and we're like, okay, Spirit, show us, what is it still that I haven't resolved and I haven't understood? And we did a pile of work. And ironically, the requisition got misplaced. And so there were a few days that went by between when I should have had the CAT scan. So we had about a week. And the Sunday night before the Monday appointment that was finally set, they said, okay, we're going to remove the rest of the cancer with grace. You have met each and every lesson. You understand. And because through your understanding, this lesson can be released. And they had Darryl do a process that we use with our clients. And so Monday morning, I went to the CAT scan, and a couple of days later, I get my results. It was clear. A week and a half later, or 2 weeks later, on a Saturday, my gynecologist calls, and he says, I can't be with these results. It doesn't make sense to me. we want to run more tests. And we're like, okay, of course. And so, because he's called the city and he's called a couple, other doctors, and they're like, no more tests. Anyway, it came up negative. So that's
Wow, that's huge.
it is huge, yeah. And it makes us relatable. I think as a couple, we have so much to teach as a couple, and bringing the sacredness of being in a relationship back to, and what it means to be in relationship in a strong way. But also we're human beings, and we're going through our challenges, and we're meeting them with courage, just as our clients are.
How do you tune into your intuition when it comes to your messages from spirit? Well, I know for myself, it's like a peaceful sort of space, and I just get ideas and like pictures, usually pictures and sometimes even words. So
nice. Yeah. Well, my speaker system is really loud, so really, really loud. Yes. So everybody, it's like I'm in constant conversation with all of you. So all of you, there's like all kinds of parts of you, the parts of you that your child parts but it's like almost I'm in an omni state present now, where I just constantly getting information all the time. So I guess I'm just managing, and it comes in all forms. It can come in words, pictures, knowings. My body is a huge instrument, dreams. So it's always talking. I'm always listening now.
Yeah.
Is it ever overwhelming?
Yes, no, it is overwhelming. But, not overwhelming in the way that you think. They have stepped it up ever so slowly. So each time I meet, and they put me into challenges all of the time. And so when I meet it, then it opens that more, I want to use the word power, but in the right way. Like more grace, more knowing state is revealed.
Yeah, for me, I access it slightly differently. I've been a muscle tester, long time muscle testing, and so I'm constantly, I use this sort of system, and I'm constantly asking questions and getting yes/no responses if my fingers stay strong or goes down, and so just learning how to ask the right questions can take me somewhere. I also very empathic, I guess, and so I also will feel what's going on. I'll feel, there's anger in the field, or there's sadness, or there's shame, or whatever, and then I'll feel it in me, but I know it's not mine, and then we can relate it to who it is, the individual we're working with, and give it context and so on. Because the problem with the unconscious is it's unconscious. By definition, we don't know what's there, and it's often almost diametrically opposed to what we believe consciously. Like, some of the smartest people in the world deep down think they're stupid. That's why they got that second PhD. See, I'm not stupid. So we're dealing with this part of our mind that's much, much more powerful. In fact, 1,000,000 times more powerful than our consciousness. So we have to go there and make changes. But as Jen was saying, you have to figure out what you want to change, and what, more importantly, that you want to change. Because the truth does set you free. But always reminds me of that Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth. In other words, some people go into denial, is what I'm saying is, but recognizing that the truth is your elixir, that is what's going to take you there. And so you have to be brutally honest and humble to be able to face your own demons, and to recognize, like in our soul's journey, we've all had many lifetimes, and we've all killed and been killed. And so then what's there to judge? Then we can have a sense of compassion with ourselves and with others. And then when we do that, we move away from us and them, and more towards a kind of a unity-based consciousness, which is kind of the direction I think we need to go.
You both have like amazing gifts by the sound of it, and they've developed over time. Have you ever thought about documenting the processes that you embody? Because it could be something that should be shared with the world in that sort of way too, because other people might want to discover their gifts through the understanding of your gifts.
Yes, good question. So we're presently, Spirit has, I don't know how much you have read about it or our background, but so about 3 years ago, they removed us to a remote location. So both of us were, I was doing workshops and retreat, and we were teaching, and come together, and they say, okay, let's move you to a remote location. And I channeled the book, The Way to Peace. And so in that book, it's a short book, but it's aimed at really giving people the framework of the mind, and why it's so deceptive and easily programmable and stuff like that. There's no how-to in it, but the first part of our step was to show people why this is what's going on and why. The second part, then they gave us a workshop. So we've been now teaching the workshop, and in the workshop there is a process. It's a very simple process, but this process is something to assist our clients in accessing those subconscious beliefs and patterns. And it's a chakra-based process, and it's very deep, and people are having transformative results, like, not needing their glasses, not needing certain medications, totally changing their lives. And
able to sleep at night.
Yeah. And so we have that process that's in the works. In a few months, we'll be taking that online so people can access it all over the world, because I know we're going to Ontario here, we're in Canada and such, but so we'll be offering that online. The third and last step that Spirit has just revealed to us, we were just in New Mexico in Sedona just in the last 2 weeks. They took us there and guided us there, is I will be writing a second book. So Darryl will be assisting me in channeling this book, and this is the how-to. So the how-to, yes. And so the how-to is the big, like, well, how can I do this? And so that's what's coming up in the next couple of months. So they've asked us to set aside the next couple of months to bring that through. So yes, to answer your questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's important that you get that down, because, if you're embodying this information and no one else can, it's got to be shared with the world, right?
Well, and they showed us, one last thing I want to say is they showed us if we can get out, essentially, if we can get out and unlock that door in the matrix, because I was looking at, various other people's work, but if I can get out and open that door, it doesn't need to be as difficult. So the processes that we had to come to get out were very rigorous and very, very challenging. It doesn't need to be that for the next people in line. So it can be much easier. And I think this is what Spirit is trying to distill, because there's so much trickery. We had to use so many modalities to get through.
Yeah, we had to do our own work. I think we mentioned it, but literally hours every day of our own work. And it's when we would do that, then they would give us a little bit more. And then we would do more and more of our work. It's like we had to earn it. And we had to earn the workshop that we're now teaching and so on. So it is, it's like becoming the change. Is because it's all energetics. We look at the whole world in terms of energetic dynamics, and it's just like, if you're a rock thrown in a pond and you have ripples coming out, and I'm a rock thrown in a pond and I have ripples coming out, there's a place where our ripples are going to interface, and you're going to get an interference pattern. You're going to get constructive interference, and you get harmony. I get really good vibes from that guy, he's really good. Or you're going to get destructive interference, and you're going to get chaos, and you're going to get some sort of an issue. So many of our issues are in relationship with each other. Is what happens in that space where we connect energetically. And in that space, there's going to be mirrors and reflections and all kinds of distortions based on the energy we're configured with. And we come in with a lot of this energy, and we're also influenced by our ancestors.
Significantly.
Very much. And beings that don't have our best interest in mind. You carried forth enemies and things of this nature. There's all kinds of things happening just on the other sides of the veils that are influencing us, and then what then shows up in our life. Because we do create our reality, but we do it not so much like in the field. It's like, well, just think happy thoughts and it's going to be drawn to you. There's some truth in that, but because the unconscious part of us and what's speaking from us energetically is much more powerful, that's what organizes the field of infinite possibilities and draws back a reflection of itself into our lives. So we have to understand the energetics. Once we can do it, these energetic dynamics, without exaggerating, are mathematical. So once you understand the math and you change the math, then the expression has to change. So that's the way. And so those are some of the things that we've been learning in our exploration with each other. And of course, a lot of it has to do with our purpose, which is kind of trying to put the masculine in right relationship and the feminine right relationship. The masculine archetypes in our world have been a little distorted.
Irresponsible.
Power over that kind of energy. Those are the archetypes. And the feminine has been largely pushed into their shadow, suppressed, denied for their true things. And so then they try to jump into feminine power, or like a distorted feminine power, which is like using sexuality or something like that to have a place. And so now we're going in the wrong direction from the kind of spiritual evolution that is really wanted at this time.
Yeah, you speak to the idea that the world is like a feedback device in a way. And in doing so, we actually are co-creating everything, even when it's awful.
Even when it's awful, yeah.
Yeah. And the point is, you got to actually ask yourself, can you learn from that? And yes. You obviously can, otherwise it wouldn't be presented to you.
It's essentially a gift. I mean, the dark is not there to beat us down. It's there to say, to tempt us and to challenge us and to really question what is it that we truly want. So do we have the courage to do the right thing even when it's difficult, or go against the norm even when you're alone? And so I think that the energy that wants to really spark in us this grit and this the resilience and persistence to work through challenges is the juice that we're all looking for, but we forget. So we were born to this planet, and we often forget why we've come and lose track and are distracted. And so it's really important that we stand outside of these distractions and really question ourselves and our integrity and what we truly are seeking. So when we make decisions.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's one thing I've been noticing with myself as I've tuned up, that over time I can't consume Hollywood garbage anymore. And
exactly, I know.
You know what I mean? It's like as soon as I start seeing people beat up each other or shoot each other, it's like, I don't need this. Yes. I just turn it off. Like, it's just because I know that on some level our own bodies, when they see something happening to a body, they can't discern whether that's reality or not. That's just what they're seeing, and they're like, is that happening to me now? And so it causes cortisol and anxiety and everything. So I'm like, well, do I want to participate in that game? It's not even healthy by any means, and all of the stories are so dark and awful. Why bother?
Well, what I would say to that, I don't know, CJ, if you looked, but Spirit came to me, through us, last August. And I don't know if you saw my prophecy of the fires in LA. But
yeah, I read that.
Yeah. And so at the time when I was giving the message, I didn't quite I often don't understand it, but we were so many months out. And I knew January was January was also going to show us something specific. So anyway, so as we were sitting there, in January, and Spirit reminded me of that video, and I went back and looked at it, and I was like, oh, that's what they were trying to. So everybody has karma, right? So we're talking about these lessons. And so we have country karma, we have collective karma, we have individual karma, we have karma, in our families. So we're all working through all of these lessons, and the more courage and persistence we have in looking at it and really kind of understanding it and embracing it, the more successful it will be. So, and then we'll be like, I did that. And so Hollywood is going through something that it needed to go through. It needed to confront some of its deeper shadows, right? And it needed to be brought out publicly. Now, that said, it's also intertwined with other bigger powers. So you're looking at China's involvement, and also the politics side of it. So it's not just one group of people that we're pointing a finger at. And ironically, Spirit took it one more step. They're saying, don't forget all of those people that have asked that of Hollywood. Give me more. I want to see more of that. And so Hollywood responded and said, oh, you really like that? I'll give you more. That makes me feel good. So everyone's participating on some level. And so we all have to really look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how would you teach people to embrace and learn from their karmic lessons?
Yeah, well, this is first off, you need to have some sort of an understanding of context. In other words, we have to ask the question, especially if there's a pattern in our life, why does this keep showing up? Why am I a victim? Let's say, we'll take that example. I'm a victim to my parents, and I bullies victim me, and then I had somebody rip me off, and and then life sucks, and but it's like, oh, what's the common denominator? It's like, it's me, right? You have to start doing a personal inquiry. And then you start to go, oh, see, I love this. If you take responsibility, you have the ability to respond. Then you're back in the seat of your own power, right? And then you can start to say, there's a thread here, there's common. And it's not to saying that what you went through isn't hard, but if you sit there and say, okay, then, and now, Spirit works with different people, because like our ways of getting information are different, clairvoyant, empathic, pictures, or creative space, meditation. Dreams are another wonderful way to get information. If you ask for a dream to answer a question that you have in mind, it'll start coming, especially if you write it down before you wake up in the morning. And Spirit is trying to talk to us, but in our collective trance that we've been in, that's another thing. Oh, it's just a dream, just ignore it. But it's like free psychotherapy if you're wise, and you can start to see what it is it's trying to show you. And of course, it speaks in metaphors. right? So, if you're being chased by a lion in the dream, it's like, well, that was an awful dream. Oh, forget about it already. No, what does a lion represent? Power. What are you doing? I'm running away from it. So what would it happen if you learn? And then once you start to integrate the life lesson, you turn, eventually the dream would be an integrative dream, and you turn towards the lion and you have this big embrace. Now I'm embracing my power. It's just a quick metaphor to show how the dream process is one way that spirit can connect to us, and it's also a doorway into our subconscious. So that then is one way. I mean, obviously you can learn you can get Brian Weiss tapes on how to basically take you on a guided meditation to take you back to your past lives that were, when your problem first began. And then you can, in that sort of trance deep state, you can get a memory of it, or you can work with people like us or whatever. But somehow you have to get a sense of what happened in the past, because then you're going back to those energetic dynamics, those mathematical dynamics. In that situation, if you gave your power away and then somebody took it, and now you're still configured that way, then coming forward in your life now, here's that same situation, because life wants you to learn the life lesson. Karma is not a punishment the way it is. It's like you're getting your comeuppance from spirit for something you did past in a past life. It's all about our life lessons. Karma is a really good thing. And so it's showing us something that we need to learn from. Once we learn from it, the universe isn't sadistic. Once you've learned your lesson, then you don't need the messenger anymore. And then the problem goes away. It's like, oh, I see what this is showing me. And then so I need to step into my power. I need to find my voice. I need to do whatever it is. I need to set a boundary. I need to do something. And then it's you learned your lesson, and then from the circle, which is if you don't learn the lesson, you're destined to repeat it. If you learn it, then the circle goes into a spiral, and you start evolving towards a more conscious state. So there's different ways of learning your karma, but definitely contemplating the patterns that have shown up in your life, in your own life, and with your relationships to your family and your friends and your loved ones is going to show you some of the things that are alive in your life. Because what happens is we become aligned with these patterns and these distortions, and then we defend them. I'm going to give you just a quick analysis that I think is so useful to see in, as we go through life. And so let's say we had 3 buckets of water in front of us. One bucket's hot, one bucket's cold, and the middle bucket, the water is tepid. And you put one hand in the hot and one hand in the cold, and then after like 30 seconds or something, you pull them out and simultaneously plunge them into the middle bucket, into the tepid water. And this a very interesting thing happens. When you pull them out, your hands are telling you different things. The hand that was in the cold water says, no, that middle bucket water is warm. The one that was in the hot said, are you stupid? It's cool. No, it's warm. I'm telling you, it's warm. No, you're cool. And then you're going to defend your beliefs, and you're going to get into a fight or a conflict. But what does the original bucket represent? It represents your conditioning, where you're from. If you went to church, your family, your schooling, your teachers, your peers, what TV you watched. So you don't see and your past lives and your ancestors. So you don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are through the filters of your perception, which are learned. And so once you recognize that I'm coming from a bucket, I'm perceiving reality, like how are you perceiving it? See, then you can rise above the buckets and look down and say, I understand why you think that water's warm. I understand why you think that water's cool. From there, you can have compassion. From there, healing is a possibility because there's understanding. You're getting closer to truth. So as you do your inner work, it's like you're peeling back the layers of your bucket and you're getting higher and higher. You're releasing the veils of illusion and you're getting closer and closer to the truth, which is where you have to get if you want to get ultimate resolution. So it's a journey, but you have to embark on it. Otherwise, you're destined to repeat these patterns and you don't get the karma. And then we see people in our practice that have dealt with these same patterns for lifetimes. But it's not that hard to change. You just have to know what it is and how to do it.
Okay. I was going to ask you questions about the connections to our ancestors and the importance of working with your ancestors to resolve issues.
So like our own collective, like, how we have many parts of ourselves. So imagine giving voice to the part of you that feels this way and a part of me feels that way. So what I would add, I think that will help bridge this question for you, CJ, is that, when we think of how we feel in a situation, it's very complex. So we want to give that voice to each part of ourselves. It doesn't mean that one of them holds the complete answer, but I think in putting everything on the table or everything into the light, now we can make a more conscious conscious choice. Oh, actually, I realize a part of me does that, but I think the higher answer is to go forward with it, or whatever it is. So that also exists on the ancestral plane. So there's a part of your grandmother that was, the one that we know and hold and cherish, the lighter side of her. And then she has her darker parts. And often those fragmented parts of her are running around because they have unfinished business, and their influence dials into parts of you that you have not resolved. So this is the magnetic draw that draws the darkness towards us. So if we have, say, a feeling of obligation to do something, I have to do this for my children, or I feel like I have to make sure that they play the piano because grandma would love it if they played the piano. And so all of a sudden you've got a part of grandma magnetically drawn into you, and you feel this pressure, and you're putting pressure on your children to actualize something in their lives, whether it's a skill or something to make the family proud. Well, now you've opened this portal or gateway up to all this additional pressure, and your child is holding that now, and so they're struggling. And so I think the thing that I would add, the archetype that I used for so long, was my detective hat. You have to be a detective. You have to scrutinize, and you have to question, and you have to you have to look at all of the contributing factors and really ask yourself, well, why am I asking my child of something of them when I wasn't willing to do that myself? Or maybe I don't even value it, but the societal pressures, or we have to be something. So we have to question our motives at every pass. That's where consciousness has to keep growing. You have to keep growing those muscles. They don't just come to you. You have to lift that weight. So, but you have to go through mistakes or shortfalls, or you have to hit dead end roads, or really then have the impetus to actually ask those questions. So the ancestors influence all the time. Like they come up all the time with people. So, but when you change, the power to change in this moment changes not only their influences, but your future ancestors. So here you're changing your child's life by doing your own inner work. And so they say 7 generations back and 7 forward. Well, I'll tell you, we're going sometimes 10 generations back, sometimes even more. So don't be limited. I know people like to place rules on things very quickly, too quickly. But yeah, it's really fluid.
Do you have any success stories that you'd like to share in relation to people that you've worked with? But if you could make them anonymous, that'd be really good.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that as we have them all the time. So that's a problem with us, is like when we work with a client, like within a few hours, we not forget everything, but you have to understand the intensity of the sessions. And so is there anyone that comes to mind?
Your sister changed.
Oh yeah, you could do that one. Yeah, it's a simple one.
Yeah, it's because of these, the mathematics that we're saying and how we're all integrated. So we'd be working with somebody and they had a deep problem with their sibling and so on, and everyone plays a different role in the family. It's one of the things. It's probably good to share a little bit, because energy is just energy. You can't actually destroy it, and we sort of know that from physics and stuff. But our journey is to become whole and to embrace all of our energies. But sometimes if you found that when you smiled, you got more attention, and when you cried as a baby, you got, punished or something, I'll give you something to cry about or something. Then we say, well, I'm going to push away my emotions, and I'm going to become a people pleaser and a smiler. That was my journey, actually. And so then it's like, so that part of you, your emotions maybe get disowned, but you can't destroy it. So it's got to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So somebody in the family, if the whole family is configured that way, somebody's going to carry the emotions. And then we're going to judge them in our family. And we call the black sheep in the family. They carry the disowned energies of the family unit. And of course, we could take this to a country level and a world level stage if you want. So that's why we have Hitlers, I think, in situations of this nature, is there's collectively disowned energy that has to go somewhere, and then we get a big pimple somewhere, right? So when we embrace these energies in ourselves, we become more whole. So we worked with a client, and as we worked with that client, working with her energies and her disowned parts, we get an email the next day from her saying, oh my God, all that hatred, all that anger I had towards my sister went away. Mm-hmm. And her sister was like, well, I've never felt so good. And she didn't even know what had happened. So these are the things that happen. We work with babies that are not eating.
Yeah, we have a lot of food. We have a lot of eating disorders.
Eating disorders and stuff,
too.
and baby and children. And we've had a few of those where these kids have these eating disorders with the parent, and the child's carrying the problem for the karma or the emotion or whatever it is that's causing that eating distortion. And then we change it with the client we're working with on Zoom. And then the kid, you go, oh my God, my kid ate a whole hamburger yesterday. He hasn't eaten for months, like that. And we're hearing these kinds of stories because we're all energetically entangled. And that's the beauty of doing our own work, is when you have an energetic dynamic, if you change one part of it, the whole thing has to come into a new form. We live in a holographic universe, and every piece contains the whole. So when you change a piece, it has the influence on the whole. So we get those types of stories. And then, of course, people's eyesight's getting better and their migraines going away, their back pain. We work with cancers, lawsuits change. I mean, there's
estates,
all kinds of things that happen because they're all a reflection of the energetic dynamics. And once you change it, then it starts to change. Sometimes, when you're working at the level of cause, we don't make guarantees, and we're not saying that every single person gets a miracle after one session. Sometimes they do, but what you do know is you're working in the right direction. You're now going north. You may have been going south before, but your direction you have to go is north. Is it 1 mile? Is it 10 miles? Is it 100 miles? But you're now working, you're chipping away. In other words, if you take two rocks and bang them together 10 times, and then the 10th time the rock breaks, you say, well, which strike broke the rock? And people say, well, it was the 10th strike that broke the rock. It was actually no. It was all 10 strikes, and the energy finally got to that point on the 10th hit, it finally broke. So sometimes it doesn't look like you're making headway, but you just keep going with the resilience and the grit, and eventually you're going to get where you need to go. Unless, of course, it's divine karma. There's exceptions to every rule. Sometimes there's people that are going to have the experience because they need to have it.
And that does come up rarely, but it does.
It does. I mean, karma is very much learning from the other side. You asked about karma. It's like if you abused power in a past life, you were abusive, a bully, or whatever, then in this life, then you're going to be on the other end of that, and you're going to feel what it's like to be abused. And you say, well, that sucks. And it's like, right? Your soul learns that. And it's like, now you download that as wisdom. And the next time you're in that position of power, you don't abuse it. So it's learning through because that's the best way to learn, is you learn by doing, learn by going through it. And feeling it, experiencing it. And so we're all on this thing, but we were never given the rules. It's like playing a game and we were never given the rules of the game. It's much easier to play that. We got caught up, like you're saying, with the matrix of life, like the movies. The other thing that's come up a lot, and maybe get Jen to talk about it because it came through her, as a dream, but these devices that we're having now. Not to say you got to throw them away, but our lives are now artificial. So many people spend hours and hours in this artificial device, and that's causing big problems and so on, because we're not in any level of balance with these things, and we're being taken away from our instinctual nature.
Yeah, so what I would add to that, there was a prophecy that I had to put out, I think maybe a month ago, and with a date, actually, Spirit gave the date. March 6, 2028 is it's like a point of no return for the children being born. So parents, Spirit is really asking us as humanity and the way we parent in not allowing the technology to overwhelm us in our lives, because it's the severing of our root chakra is becoming so severe that people are losing their connection. You were talking about the ancestors. Like, not only we were kind of sharing more the shadow side of the karmic side of it, but the richness of our ancestral connection, where we're from, who we are, how we've come to be born on this point on the planet matters. And so when we come into form, we are coming to understand the richness of that family line and what it is here to offer, what its contribution to the tapestry of the whole is. And so with the devices, people are not conveying their ancestral, cultural, they're not sharing that part of themselves anymore. It's being dismissed in exchange for a very mental, AI, artificial experience. And so people don't know how to make their family foods or what makes their culture unique and special. And so because if it's not repaired or honored by this date, our humanity is in danger, because we will not be able to withstand the coming challenges that are going to be coming from the earth. So basically, we'll not remember how to grow the herbs and what the herbs do to help us in nature, or how to have a garden, or how to help ourselves during, a drought or difficulties, or whatever we're going to face. Spirit has made it very clear the challenge is coming. And if we forget who we are, if we disown our instinctual nature, our ancestral connection, we will not be able to withstand the challenges coming. And so that date was the can't turn the bus around. So
wow, huge.
Yeah.
Well,
it is huge. And you know what? I know. And so I will say, usually Darryl says it, but like a lot of what I predict comes through, like a lot. So when we got that date, it was a very straight spine, pay attention. And so I know we have 3 years, but as we all, like, time flies. So yeah, it's really important for people to pay attention.
I think there's a lot of truth coming out right now. If you kind of look globally, I mean, we don't spend a lot of time looking at that, because it can take you down a bad path in terms of that. But and there's not a lot of truth in there, but just the big things of the reveals and things that are coming to the surface. There was like the Me Too movement, and now in California, and then all these things that are happening that is coming to the light of awareness. What's in shadow is coming into awareness, and then you're in the place of choice. And I think the other thing that's happening energetically is we're no longer going to be able, and this was another prophecy that came through, kind of go into denial anymore and just repress and deny things. You're going to be face to face. So when you have an illness, when you have a relationship difficulty, when there's a big car accident in your life, we need to start recognizing that these are not random events, that they're being drawn to us to wake us up and to expedite the process, because we are working on a limited, time thing. We're very confident that we can move through this and make these changes, and universe is very intelligent, and maybe it'll be a lot bumpier for some and a lot smoother for others. I think learning and growing is a given, whether you take the smoother path or the bumpier path, that's kind of more up to you, and so on. But we do think that people need to start to kind of become aware of the fact that life is not a random, chaotic event, but it's very purposeful. It's mathematical, and we need to be involved and to be able to start to do our part, and to live our purpose. We've all been given a purpose. There's a wonderful quote from an Indigenous man that we really are close to, Stalking Wolf, who said, "A person who's not living their purpose is living death." And those are powerful words, but if you really feel them, don't they feel true?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was going to say to that I had experiences with spirits in the past, and one of the things that I came to with them while working over a series of contact events, I kept on coming to this idea, oh no, the world is falling apart, there's all these bad things happening, what should I do? And they just said, stop thinking you have to do anything, we know what we're doing.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And we have to recognize, too, that we all punched a ticket to come here and actually take this ride, so we might as well enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Well, when we were in Sedona, just after one of the hikes, Angel Uriel wanted me to, I brought through a message, it went on our Instagram, and it was essentially, imagine the analogy she used. It's a simplistic one, but imagine we're all in a football game, a soccer. For us, it's soccer, but, for part of the world, it's called football. And we're taking our shift and we're playing, and then we're distracted. We're not putting our best efforts. But there are people, and this, when I say souls that are on the other side of the veil, saying, put me into the game. You said you wanted to play, and now you're dogging it. Like you're not playing your best. So we are all here. We all drew the long straw to go, right? And so those that were left behind are literally on the other side of the veil, a little bit frustrated with some of the efforts right now and so if we sound kind of like we're trying to really coach people into, we're a coach here, and we're trying to inspire people to do their best, because we need them, and when we're all pulling together, success is I'm sure. But if not, the squeeze and the effort and the sweat is what's going to make us excited that we were part of that football game. So I think that if we're doing our best, then we all hit the pillow at night saying, that was a rich day.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think we're all talking the same language here. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So we've come towards the end of the podcast now, and I wanted to thank you both for everything that you shared. How can people find you and your book and everything?
Sure.
Yeah, our website is The Nature of.
Okay, I'll just
Yeah.
highlight that and point down to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, very
Yeah,
much.
and everything you can find, our social contacts are on there, our email, our YouTube. A lot of our YouTube videos are there.
Yeah, things like that, yeah.
And then we have our YouTube, but you can find it all on our website. And yeah, we're excited. I mean, Spirit is coming through, and I think we have a prophecy coming through today. So they've warned us to set time aside. So there's always things coming through and messages. And like I said, we have a second book that we're going to be working on in the next couple months, and our workshops.
Yeah, and then if people want to work with us one-on-one, they can get our contact information there, and they can do a one-on and do a really deep dive in one session. We get a lot of work done, and then they can really get a sense of looking at their life and making a lot of ahas of like, that's why, and that's why that is, which can change the game, and so yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of aha moments even out of this conversation. So I appreciate everything that you've shared,
Thanks,
Jennifer and
Jay.
Darryl. It's been a great conversation, and I'm going to say goodbye to you now.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It
you
was
so
a joy
much.
being here.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Okay. I'll just say goodbye to the listeners. That was a sweet conversation with Jennifer and Darryl, and their understanding of their connection to, first of all, each other, and then also to their own paths, and then how once those paths were intertwined, how that now helps to heal many others. I appreciate all that they shared, and if you need to find them, their URL will be down in the show notes. And while you're here on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you're on a podcast app and you enjoy this conversation, please do me a favor. Get out your device and give me 5 stars or write something nice. That way other people can enjoy and share these conversations as well. So thank you so much for your time. And until next episode, it's bye for now.